All right, we call the special meeting to order, not a special meeting, budget hearing, to order at 6:02. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, if you could do the roll call when you are ready.
Councilwoman Melly Garthwaite,
Melly Garthwaite, Counsel at Large, present.
Councilman Brian Locks,
Councilman Brian at Large, present.
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan,
Councilwoman Ann Heffernan, 1st District, present.
Councilwoman Ruby Melton,
Councilwoman Ruby Melton, 2nd District, present.
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali,
Councilwoman Sarah Akbarali, 3rd District, present.
Councilman Gary Donovan,
Councilman Gary Donovan, 4th District, present.
Councilman Edward McMillan is on his way, and Councilwoman Dawn Callahan is also on her way. Councilwoman Catherine Tucker,
I'm assuming she's on her way.
I'm not sure about her yet. Councilman Christopher Vargo,
Councilman Christopher Vargo, 8th District, present.
Councilwoman Katie Muller,
Councilwoman Katie Muller, 9th District, present.
Councilman Stephen Johnstone,
Councilman Stephen Johnstone, 10th District, present.
and Chairman Nicholas Pascal.
Chairman Nicholas Pascal present.
And we have a quorum, Mr.
We
Chairman.
have a quorum. Thank you. And if you can read the call of the meeting when you're available.
The West Haven City Council Finance Committee, Council as a whole, will conduct budget meetings on Mayor Duranda Boer's recommended budget for fiscal year 2025-2026 as listed below. The meetings will take place as follows in the City Council Chambers, 3rd floor, West Haven City Hall, 355 Main Street.
Thank you very much. It is now 6:04, and at this time, I will turn the meeting over to Finance Chair Sarah Akbarali.
Thank you, Chairman. First up tonight on our presentation is our Finance Department. Michael Gormany.
I just want to make a quick note that Councilwoman Kathy Tucker is here.
All right, good evening, everyone. So, just because I am a visual person, I did pass out some handouts that's making its way around related to the Finance Department's budget. Just want to say this is my first budget process in West Haven, so look forward to working with everyone. As the mayor stated during her public hearing, obviously we submitted the budget during the deadline set by the city charter, and we look forward to working with the city council on if there are any savings and whatever else we could do within the budget. So I believe the handouts are making their way around, but I'll get started. This is really just a brief overview of the Finance Department and the budget changes. The Finance Department budget was really status quo, moving from fiscal year 2025 to fiscal year 2026. So looking at slide number 3, just kind of gives an overview of what makes up the Finance Department, which is the Comptroller's Office. And then I also oversee payroll, procurement, and central services, central utilities, the assessor's office, the tax collector, and risk management was moved out to operations within the mayor's proposed budget, but there is still an aspect that I would be overseeing because the Finance Department deals with risk insurance and everything else. So that would be in conjunction with the Chief Operating Officer as outlined in the presentation. Moving on to slide number 4, starts to get into some of the Finance Department's budget changes. The first section of that the Finance Department oversees is personnel. So within the Finance Department's personnel department budget, looking from fiscal year 25 to 26, there really are no new requests. There were some moves within the finance department's budget. First off, we had the 681, which are contractual raises. And then, if you remember earlier on this year, we eliminated an administrative clerk position, and the funding was in two parts: a savings to the city, and then we increased the executive assistant's salary in the mayor's office. That was a transfer that happened earlier on this year, and within the finance department, moving into next fiscal year, we eliminated the position as we stated at that meeting. We did move our procurement department, which is at another meeting. They have an administrative assistant for procurement. What we ended up doing was moving that administrative assistant to the comptroller's office and expanding that administrative assistant to help out finance and procurement. So that's how we were really able to eliminate that administrative clerk position within the finance department. And then the grants accountant position, you'll notice in the budget under the grants department, it is zeroed out there, and we did move that position to the finance department and retitled that to grants financial analyst. That position really doesn't work on grants. That position is the financial portion of grants. So that's really the accountant position that really works within the finance department itself. So it made sense to move that from the grants department to the finance department. And then as the last bullet states, the risk manager position was moved to the city operations department. Moving on to the next slide is our non-personnel. That is really a status quo budget. We really didn't make any changes. The only changes we made to that line item was really in our convention and dues. I really want to stress with the finance staff more education, training, and being part of certain organizations like GFOA or CCM from the finance staff perspective. So you will see that convention and dues did increase from $200 to $2,200, which again gives us more access to financial literature and best practices when it comes to municipal finance. So that's expanding on some of our individual memberships for some of our staff members. The only other change was, again, safety programs, which is a risk management function, was moved out of finance into city operations. Our financial services line stays status quo, so that financial services line is really where we pay for the city auditor, different other contractual services related to the finance department when it comes to bond issuances and things like that. So those are just some of our contractual services that are housed in the finance department. Going on to the next few slides are just some of the other aspects that finance oversees. So I'll quickly go through those, such as our city liability accounts. So that did increase from fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26 on our general liabilities. We did ask for a slight increase, as those are really for items that are related to, like, when someone hits our city vehicles and they don't have insurance, we pay for it out of the general liability account. Or when there's workers' comp or other losses such as that, that's what comes out of those general liability accounts. And then we have our insurance premium accounts. So those, we are self-insured, but we also carry policies for such as cybersecurity, general liability for employees, bonding, things like that. Our insurance premium account did go down when you look year over year. For fiscal year 25, we budgeted $1.3 million. In fiscal year 26, working with our insurance brokers, we're budgeting $950,000. Every year, we do work with a city insurance broker to look at our policies to make sure we have the correct limits and make sure we have the correct policies in place because those change year by year. Think of how your auto insurance works. When the renewal comes up, sometimes you shop around to make sure you're getting the best price or whatever the case is. We also do that with our city insurance policies. Moving to the next slide is really employee benefits. The primary driver of the employee benefits section is really our health insurance. Again, we are part of the state partnership plan. So the state really dictates the cost premium to the city, and that's based on experience. They have it outlined on their website for New Haven County, Hartford County, and different counties. The claim experience based on the county is really what dictates the cost that municipalities will pay for the state partnership plan. We did see a slight increase going from one year to the next based on the rates that the state published. And moving on to the next slide is our debt service slide and our contingency accounts. Our debt service did go down for fiscal year when you compare fiscal year 25 to fiscal year 26. Again, our debt service is based on our borrowing. We are, as I mentioned a few months ago when we came and gave the presentation on bonding, we do borrow a year prior. So next fiscal year, we would be paying debt on fiscal year 24-25's capital budget. So we have a financial consultant who works with us. He was here during that presentation, Bill Lindsay. They build out our pro forma debt statement for 5 years out. So looking at our debt service numbers, we did see a decrease. Also, some of our debt from prior years did mature in March of 2025, so that was also part of the savings that went into that number as well. In our contingency account, we did see a slight increase in the contingency account going from about $950,000 to $1.4 million in that account. Now that account is used for unexpected expenses and also used for salaries when we have open contracts, because again, those are negotiations. We use a best guess estimate in there, but until the contract is actually settled, then we know what the actual general wage increase or retro or whatever is with those contracts. But we budget in contingency for what we think may happen. We're trying to forecast those negotiations. So that's what the contingency account is for unexpected expenses and primarily salaries for open contracts. So on this slide, I did outline the 3 open contracts. Right now we have 1103, 1198, and 895 are coming due. Those expire June 30th of this year. So as we were building this budget, we did look at salaries and scenarios and try to build in a contingency number within that budget. And the last slide is central utilities and capital projects. On the capital side, finance really only has one capital item, which is reval. We do annualize revaluation over a 4-year period in the capital budget. So when you look at past capital budgets, you'll see $100,000 basically in each year, which pays for the revaluation process on that 5th year. So we did budget $100,000 in the 25-26 capital budget for revaluation. Again, it starts that annualization process for us to get to the 5th year to ensure we have the funds for reval in the 5th year. And one of the areas that we looked at in the mayor's proposed budget is centralizing utilities. We want to get a better handle on city utilities. One of the initiatives that I actually took with my staff was we actually hired a utility audit firm. So they were on cooperative contract. We looked at the terms and conditions, and they're starting their work as far as looking at our UI, Southern Connecticut Constellation, to see if there's any savings, to see if, make sure we're paying the correct rates, and, making sure we're not paying taxes we're not supposed to. So we did start that process, but to also help and get a handle on our utilities in this budget, you will see that we did start to centralize utilities and break them out by categories such as cell phone, electricity, water, things like that. So we did begin that process to take a look at that. We would be working alongside the city operations department in looking at the city utilities. So I know that was a lot, but again, finance does handle a lot of different areas of the budget, so I want to make sure I touched on everything. Thank you, Chairwoman.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Mr. Gormany. I just had a quick question about the comptroller personnel detail. Are we hiring a risk manager for that department?
No, we already have a risk manager. I will be with her at that presentation. I think the mayor, in looking at the overall operations of the city and what the city operations department would do, felt that that position would be under the auspices of the chief operating officer. Again,
Okay.
I have an aspect of it too, so we'd be working together. But we have a risk manager, and the position was just moved from finance to that office.
Excellent. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Gormany? Councilman Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Yeah, just so I can get myself straightened out here. The accountant clerk, that got moved to a new job down below, is that what that is?
The account clerk for
Oh, sorry, page 50, yes.
page 50. I'm sorry.
You got the account clerk and the administrative clerk.
So the account clerk for financial accounts payable, is that what you're talking? It's
Yes.
like a long title.
Yeah.
So that was a unionized matter, and if you look at the bottom of the page, the accounts payable analyst, that's actually their correct title.
Okay.
And thank you. I'm sorry. I just looked at my bullet points and must have skipped over that one. But
No.
yes, it was fixing the title on that particular position.
And administrative clerk, is that the administrative assistant finance now?
Yes. So that administrative, that last position on the page, again, that was moved from the procurement office to the overall finance department.
Okay. And that grants financial analyst, that's the new
That-
job?
That was originally titled as grants accountant within the grants department, but again, that's really a financial position,
Yep.
so we moved it into the finance department.
Yep, just wanted to get myself straightened out here.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. That's all I have at this time.
Right.
Madam Chair.
And the same for the junior accountant. We do not have a junior accountant right now. That is right underneath the junior financial analyst. For comptroller.
No, that junior accountant position that's filled. We have a junior accountant.
Probably looking at the wrong item, I'm sorry. Okay, I see it. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions? Councilwoman Garthwaite?
Okay, so just for the record, junior financial analyst, junior accountant, budget coordinator, payroll assistant, they all received raises from 2.47 to 2.51. Those are contractual.
Those, yes,
contractual,
correct.
right?
They're all part of the 681 bargaining
Okay,
unit.
just wanted to put that on the record. Also, the senior accountant got a 2.5 raise,
Correct.
contractual. you know, line item 1210001052440 financial services. Thank you for the explanation of that. I was wondering because I was looking back and forth in between a couple of years, and so we spent.
Sorry, I'm making sure we're streaming.
Okay, I hear an echo. So it says we spent 258,945. I'm wondering, we're budgeting 340. Can we bring that down? You think we can bring that down? I know you.
So we're currently in the process of doing the RFP for the auditor. So I think some of those were past year's costs. If you look at historical spend, which I believe the city council was provided, that line item has fluctuated up and down with various services, and it really depends on the contractual services. So I was looking at that during the budget process, and I want to build something in just in case our auditor came up more. We've seen an increased cost in the auditor because we're currently out for RFP for that. Again, we have a couple of other contractual items such as actuarial cost actuarial and bonding cost. So there are a few different contractual services that I was looking at that I want to estimate and make sure we budgeted correctly within this line item so we weren't over. To be honest, there's very little wiggle room in that line item.
Okay.
I think we're right there at the point as far as being able to budget the same amount from one year to the other based on our estimated contractual costs.
Because it looks like there's $80,000 extra in there. Am I right?
When you look at the February actual, that's the 258. But when you look at the projected expense for fiscal year 25, we're projecting to spend that whole amount for this fiscal year.
All 340 of it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that expense was just through February. Sorry.
Okay. And then am I right in thinking that the treasurer falls under your department, or is that does? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the treasurer is an elected position. I can speak that, we have weekly interactions with the current treasurer, Ron. I can tell you, he's very thorough in what he looks at. He's here every week signing checks for us. He pulls invoices to look at them. He's also part of our payroll review process. Payroll can't get processed without 2 authorizations, which one of them is his. So every week he's looking at that. So the treasurer does a lot,
Right.
with finance.
So I'm just curious. I think you were in New Haven last time, right? Were you
I was in New Haven. Yep.
Yeah. Is that pretty common to see a jump of 18.42% for that position?
So I think with the elected positions, you have to look at the historical purpose. Some of these elected positions haven't had raises in years, and when you look at the elected positions technically cannot get a raise until that election happens and they're sworn back into office, and then it's another 2 years before they can actually get another raise. So we tried to build some of that in within these positions.
Can you speak to as to what New Haven gives their elected
So
treasurer?
New Haven doesn't actually have an elected treasurer.
They do not. Does not.
They have it's actually part of someone's job duties within New Haven. That's part of an actual unionized position. So they don't actually have an elected treasurer position.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Councilman Johnstone?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Mike, going back down memory lane, and maybe Mr. Spryer can kick in if he feels so. Where do we stand with open positions in MAR? Because I know that was one of the biggest things going back. Do we have any vacancies that we're still waiting on to fill, or have we kind of checked those boxes
So
officially?
I think a lot, there are various departments that have various open positions. I know one of the things that Marb in the past was concerned about, especially, was the finance department. Right now, we're currently pretty staffed within the finance department. We did lose our budget coordinator back in February, but someone was assisting us with that. That posting is currently up right now. So within the finance department, that's really the only position that I have vacant right now.
Okay.
But again, other departments have different positions that are currently open.
Right, and like you said, I do remember, MAR was, get your finance department in
Yes.
order. Right. And then my last question is, are there, excuse me, are there any other positions down the road? Let's try to get in the forecast here. Any other positions down the road that you see that we may need to add in the future because of how things are going?
So I think as we look at just different aspects on the finance side, one of the things I'm looking at, which I'll touch on, when the IT or the IT director will touch on, is I'm really looking at bringing us really into the 21st century with some of these processes. So we've looked at purchasing some software and things like that to kind of help us out on the procurement side, DocuSign, just different things like that. So understanding that there's a limited capacity that, we can work within, I've tried to look at that. How can we work smarter and not harder, as opposed to adding more positions? Now, will I come back in the future as I keep assessing and as we keep changing what we're doing in finance to make it better? We may add different, maybe boots on the ground positions, as I call them, like analyst or things like that, or data entry, as we move forward. But at this moment, I'm really looking at working smarter, not harder, with different type of softwares and things like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman.
You're welcome. Councilman Fargo?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Mike, good evening. Thank you. You have several areas of the budget that you're responsible for, so I have some questions on a few of them.
Sure.
I'd like to start on page 50. The overtime line item, 51500. The 3-year average is considerably higher than what is being recommended. Is this because you filled a number of positions, so you don't see yourself needing the overtime in the coming year?
Correct. I think in the past, as we've all touched on, there was a period when we had to really play catch up. I mean, I wasn't here during that period, but we've all heard it, like where we were doing 2 audits at once and trying to catch up on a bunch of financial procedures and things like that. So I think that played into the overtime. I think the mayor has been very vocal about us looking at overtime and making sure that it's needed. One of the areas I look at is the audit and where overtime is needed in finance. So I'm comfortable with that 4,200, unless something urgent or something like that comes up. But I think I'm comfortable with that. I think we've caught up now, where we're at a good place in finance.
Great. Line 53445 safety programs. I'm assuming that got moved somewhere.
So that got moved to the operations department where the risk manager was moved.
And this may seem like a silly question, but you mentioned in your pass out that the union contracts expire basically at the start of the new fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any opportunity during the negotiation process to change that date?
So those are contractually that would take bargaining with the units, with the negotiating with the unions to on like any type of extension or anything like that. The best practice is we start talking earlier than those contracts expire, or as they're expiring. But that takes negotiating with them to move that date if we had to.
Right. So what you're doing, and you're building into a contingency what you anticipate at this point, what the additional salary ranges are going to be.
Correct. Because it's a negotiation, we kind of estimate and look at, but again, as you know, negotiations is a back and forth. So this is just our estimate.
Mhm.
Could be higher in the final outcome. It could be lower, or it could be right there. But yes, we try to build a number into contingency.
And to go off on your comment about the salary increases for the elected officials, is it fair to say that when an elected official receives a salary, it's basically for 2.5 years?
Correct.
So if we take, if somebody's getting a 6%, let's just say 6%, it's really 2% for or
2.7%.
2.7%.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
I'd like to jump to page 56, which is the central services. Does this fall under your department?
So central services, and to be honest, I mean, I'll answer any questions. Our senior buyer, who
Okay.
was the head of purchasing, she really handles a lot of the central services aspect.
So it'd
but-
be more appropriate if I asked. That.
Yeah.
I can. That's fine.
I mean, I'll be here with her, but yeah.
Okay, so I'll move on.
Okay.
Page 57, central utility services. You had talked about that you're trying to consolidate the utilities so that way we can track the different sorts of utilities,
Mhm.
water, electricity. I saw last year, and I think we had a lengthy discussion about that many departments have their own line items for certain utilities. Are you also trying to consolidate that way? There's just one budget for electricity, or maybe one or two instead of having 15 or 20, so you could better track what we're spending?
So what we did in this budget is on page 57, you'll see we put electricity, but we still put those particular line items just so we can break it out. What we're trying to do is get a better handle and make sure that we're seeing and tracking all the utilities in one area, because again, they're going to different departments. So number one, we want to make sure we pay them on time, because if not, that's late fees that we're getting. And number two, just for the sheer tracking of it, making sure we're tracking every single bill and every single building and everything else, making sure we have the same metrics for each department or facility, essentially. So that's why we really centralize these. But we tried to keep it, because I know sometimes you're interested in, like, well, how much does public works spend compared to, engineering? So we put it all in one department, but still want to kind of keep that transparency by division.
Right. Understood. One of the unfortunate things that happened with consolidating it like this is that we lost the 3-year average. Can you speak off the top of your head of how these numbers track with what the actual spends have been?
So yeah, we can get the 3-year average. That's one of the things I looked at today as working with the person who's filling in for the budget coordinator role. Is we need to move those 3-year averages to this area here. So
I can tell you that I'm a stickler for those
Nope.
those columns, because that just tells me how everybody's been doing for.
So right now we're trending on budget, and based on some of the utility contracts that we have, and again looking at some of the usage, because again this wasn't really tracked prior, but I do have some past data. We were very comfortable. A lot of these budgets are status quo. For this fiscal year, we may be under on some of these budgets based on the usage. So we were comfortable based on the contracts that we have in place and what we see with usage in budgeting some of these line items as status quo for going into next fiscal year. But we'll certainly get you that 3-year information.
On the cell phone service, is that for mobile data, or is that actual cell phone service?
So that's actual cell phones within the city, citywide. We tried to break that out because it was originally budgeted in just telephone. So telephone was some of our other services, some of our voice over IP, and then it was cell phones, and everything was kind of mixed in together. So we broke it out based on the spending that we did the last 5 years with cell phones, and that's how we came to that budget. But again, we're not adding to the budget because in the past years, again, there was a account called telephone administration, which was budgeted at 358,000, and we just extracted it from that number. So this is not an add-on or anything like that.
Okay. And then I think the last section I'd like to talk about is page 104, contingency expenses. Can you just walk us through what makes up the increase between for unallocated contingency between the 960 and the 1.4?
Yeah. So we have again, we have different 3 union contracts that are up, right? And because it would be negotiated, I just have to watch what I'm saying a little bit. But so with like 1103, you have to remember their contract was up June 30th of 24. So you're basically building in 2 years worth of raises within that contingency line based on whatever the final settlement would be. And then again, we have the police union that would be coming due as well. Again, we looked at historical past. We looked as far as general wage increases, retro, things like that. We built something in there. And then we also had AFD in there as well. And we also looked at some of the transfers that went into other departments. Like some departments in the past have exceeded overtime for whatever reason, but we had contingency. We had this line item of contingency. So when you look at past areas, there were transfers from contingencies to cover those departments. So we tried to look at a gamut of things to kind of build that number up, but I can tell you we were really looking at salaries and salaries, retros, and other things based on an estimate of when contracts would be settled.
Line 56210, MARB expenses. Are we all set paying that back?
So those contracts expired, as the mayor mentioned, those contracts expired 3/31. That's this fiscal year. You know, we've made it very plain. We want to be out the MARB. You know, we feel that we've done enough that warrants the city to be released. And, you know, we're not planning on any MARB expenses going into next fiscal year.
Okay. And I think last, 56305, election expenses.
Yes.
I did not see that, unless I missed where the line item is. I didn't see that under the registrar. Being that it's going to be an election year, how are those expenses going to be captured?
So, and I will find it, but on the registrar voters line, and we did work with them to look at their line, but in the budget for fiscal year 26, we actually separated out general expense and early voting.
Okay.
So that for this fiscal year, that line item was really intended for early voting and a couple of other expenses because this was the first time that we did it. In the budget, and I'm sorry, I was looking for the page, but under registrar, you'll see it's separated.
I recall there was
Yep.
an early voting in general.
Page 40. Thank you, John.
Perfect. Mike, thank you very much. I appreciate your wealth of knowledge. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Councilwoman Heffernan?
Good evening. Going back to the question that Councilman Vargo asked about the MARB expenses, we don't have any expenses to date as of February.
So what happens with the MARB is they pay them monthly, but for whatever reason, they send them all to us at once. So we're waiting on the bills, but again, those would be captured, and those are in our projection for this fiscal year because the contract's expired.
I was just hoping that we could take that money that maybe they were not going to be billed and pay it forward.
Right.
And the advance funding for the OPEB trust.
Yeah, so the advance funding for the OPEB trust is based on our actuarial analysis that they do for us. So we do have an actuary who
Predicts.
does our pensions, our OPEB, and again, this is their recommended. It's not like pension where it's an actuarial determine. It's not like it's
Set in stone.
set, right? Thank you. This is their recommended amount to put into OPEB based on what they're seeing as far as the city's liability. So we have actually in the past couple of years made the actual recommendation that they've done. So again, they recommended 1.1 million, I believe it is.
Yeah.
So that's what we added to the budget. Again, that was a 600,000 increase over this year.
It's doubled.
Yep.
How do you feel about that as a financial person?
I looked at their analysis. Again, I think one of the things about West Haven that West Haven has done with their union contracts and things like that is OPEB is really related to retiree medical, and not a lot of newer hires really get that retiree medical. So you're going to see that spike in OPEB, but at some point in the next couple of years, it's going to go down. Because again, as you get more into the folks who don't get that retiree medical, that's less of a liability on the city. And it's also good because there's an amortization table that they use, which is, think of your mortgage, you have 30 years, right? That's what you're paying off. As long as you stick to that amortization table, you should see that decline because you have the option to reset it. And, you know, some people may do that to like lower the burden in a budget year or whatever. But West Haven has stuck to that amortization table. So again, you're going to see a slight spike, but it should go down in the future years.
So no wiggle room.
I mean, again, this is
It's a
really
recommendation.
This is a recommendation, and one of the best practices is to do the recommendation for OPEB. But you know, again, a lot of cities and towns struggle with their OPEB liability. The state struggles with their OPEB liability. So OPEB liability is just something that, you know, cities, towns, the state, they deal with as they can from a financial perspective.
Thank you. I
Absolutely.
appreciate the answer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Tucker?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey, can you tell us how much 1 mil costs? the
So
city?
1 mil is,
Costs us, I should
yeah, it's a little over 4 million, based on, you know, what's in the budget for, you know, rounding up to 4 million. So if you were going to reduce, you basically have to cut by that amount.
So 4 million to drop 1 mil.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see the task before us. Okay, so then the second question I have, dog report, and this is on page 104. I'm just curious, what is that? Is that the police dog? Something to do with the police dogs?
So yeah, I believe that's a state report that we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I can actually look a little bit more into that and just get the city council through the chair an answer on that tomorrow. Or
Oh,
okay, city clerk is I believe they're after me. So
all right.
if John can remember
No,
that
it's a
question.
Contingency, though. It's in contingency. So
Yeah, I'm sure that was more along the lines of a historical place where it went
Okay.
in the budget.
Okay. We'll wait for Mr. Lewis to come to the podium. Thank you.
You're welcome. Chairman Pascal?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Michael, for being here.
Absolutely.
So one of the letters that we had during the public hearing the other night talked about our Energy Star rating going from 51 to 37, and that equating to a lot of money lost. And I'm assuming that that's why you're looking at the energy right now. Could you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was one of the areas that someone did contact me I believe he is part of the Energy Commission, and I really wanted to get that up and going again, so that way we can start to look at our utility costs and our usage, because the usage is really what drives the budget. So having that data by facility is really key. That is actually on my list of things to do Friday, is to email him back. But we did start talking, he and I started talking to UI and other places about the Energy Star. And again, I did hire this company who also knows their primary business is utility audits and things like that. So I'm working a few different areas of utilities. Again, this project just got started, but that is on my radar as well.
Perfect. I usually ask this question as well. I know we're looking for savings in the budget, but if you could have something for your department that you don't have, what would that be?
Well, I didn't think of that. Yeah, another $1 million would be good.
Chris, write a check.
No, I think again, I'm trying to utilize what I have right now. I think, looking at the future within the finance department, I'm really trying to get more data driven. So that may mean a few different positions possibly, that handle that data entry, that data analysis, things like that. But as I also mentioned earlier, I'm also trying to work smarter and not harder, right? So utilizing our financial system that we pay for is key, because that holds a lot of our information. And different areas, different softwares. Again, I began purchasing some of that along with our IT department this year. One of the things during procurement we'll talk about is, we purchased OpenGov, which will help us expand our procurement process.
What was that?
OpenGov. So that's a procurement platform. Instead of right now, we're receiving bids by paper, FedEx, things like that. This will bring us into the 21st century on getting things digitally, document retention, things like that, helping us along those lines. So I think forecasting, as I'm coming up on my year here, I think maybe later on down the line in future budgets, you may see a few more add-ons on like those type of data analytical positions. But right now we're working with what we have.
So just so I'm clear, these are add-ons to Munis that we've actually heard of in the past, that there's different add-ons that go on to that?
So we have training dollars that we can utilize with Munis. So I started utilizing some of that. My the procurement team just got trained on some of the modules in Munis and looking at making sure that we're utilizing them correctly, making sure we're utilizing them efficiently, things like that. Myself and the IT director are going to be looking at roles and utilization. We have some outdated software, third-party softwares that we're looking at that we may be able to utilize Munis for. So I'm looking at the whole gamut, basically, to see, we pay for it. Yeah. We should use it, right? That's kind of my philosophy and thinking there. And we should use it to the best of its capabilities. But then we're looking at different softwares where Munis may not be able to help, like OpenGov, where that's strictly a procurement and a budget. We didn't do the budgeting module, but that's something that we may do later on down the line in future years. But we looked at the procurement side of OpenGov. So the procurement team is training on that right now. And again, that will help us especially expand as we do RFPs and bids to different areas and different vendors and things like that.
That's fantastic news. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Melton?
Hello.
Good evening.
I'd like to talk about the debt service payment section.
Sure.
And this is just a little more education for my benefit. And when I look at this, and I look at each section where you go, like 54510, you've got the principal portion, the interest portion, and the debt service portion of that. And so if I read this correctly, the important number for our perspective is the debt service payment, right? I mean, in terms of what that bottom line is.
Yeah, so we have to break it out based on, because of how West Haven's structured and the different types of debt that we've had in the past. We have to break out WPCA because by accounting standards, we have to break that out because of the type of entity it is. And then in the past, West Haven has had deficit mitigation bonding, so that has to be its own line item. And then you have the Board of Education that has to be separate, and then you have everything else. But you're correct, that bottom line number is the roll-up of all those categories, so that's really what we're paying for the year.
So you have our, the payment structure is a combination of principal and interest. It's not interest until maturity. Is that how you structure our
Correct.
bond?
So the bonds are structured as we go out, and the timing is the important aspect as when it comes to principal and interest. So we pay debt service basically 3 to 4 times a year based on the structure. But like we just went out in March for the 23-24 capital cycle. We're paying a very small amount of interest in this fiscal year for that. And then everything else is built into the debt service schedule. So the timing really dictates how the payments flow. But after you borrow the funds, it's really a structured type of payment.
So there's no flexibility during that period for you to sort of fluctuate between interest and principal?
No. Everything is basically structured unless when you're going out, you look at those older bonds and do something, but that's not really the best practice. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Councilman Locks?
Thank you. Just a quick question, Mike. When it comes to the debt service, page 103, the graph there, the 14.9 million down to 13.1, so that's like a 12% decrease,
Correct.
or like 1.8 million dollars. How do you? What's going to drive that decrease? Is it refinancing at a lower rate?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. No, all right.
No, the decrease is driven by, again, our borrowing schedule. So
Yep.
in the next couple of years, that number is going to go back up
Sure.
because we're a year behind on borrowing.
Okay.
Right. So the 26 capital projects that's within this budget, that's really going to be reflected in the fiscal year 27 debt payment. Right. So
Okay.
that may drive that up a little bit because that's a higher capital. But again, as I was mentioning, it also depends on the timing of when we borrow as well.
Sure.
So again, and then as bonds also mature. So part of that was we paid off Series 2009 or Series 2010. Those bonds actually matured. So they're off of our debt service schedule now, right? So that was also part of the savings. So as bonds mature, you'll see that debt service number reduce, but then be offset by whatever our capital budget is in the future year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Councilwoman Callahan? You're welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just have a very simple question, just for my own knowledge. Under the electricity that you were talking about, the building maintenance, the 642-186, what is under the umbrella of the building maintenance?
So building maintenance is really in charge of City Hall and the facilities. So that's really City Hall here, the entire, we don't have it broken out by floor. It's just easier for facilities to kind of manage the entire building for City Hall from that purpose.
So that number is just City Hall?
That's City Hall and Johnson Community? Okay, Johnson Community.
I was curious. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Melton, sure.
I'm curious, can you tell us what our debt service percentage is? Or did I miss it? Is it in there? Our
As part of
total
the overall budget.
Yeah.
Let me s-
Is it somewhere in the preamble somewhere? Oh, is it what's in that pie chart? Is that it? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't have the page, but I can get that exact number.
Does that sound right? About 3.56%? That's pretty good. That's right.
Yes, 3.56%. Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions for Mr. Gormany? Seeing there are no more questions.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Gormany.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Up next, we have our City Clerk Department, John Lewis.
What's up, Doc? How we doing? Good. How you doing?
Welcome, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you, Chairwoman
You're welcome.
Akbarelli. How are you this evening?
I'm well. How are you?
Fantastic. Good evening, entire council. Greetings from the clerk's office on the first floor in City Hall, 355 Main Street. Thank you for holding these budget hearings. I am very familiar with the process and I've sat where you're sitting right now. So I do understand. So we'll try and answer your questions as thorough as possible and as quickly as possible and get you a better idea of what we're doing here. I guess I'll start out with changes. Well, first of all, I want to start with my whole team has joined here today. We've got our land records clerk, we have our assistant clerk, we have our assistant clerk here, our part-time clerk here, and we have our vitals person in the back, Elaine, Sharon, Lori, and Ursula. So they've decided to join us. Just in case I can't ask a question, they can join in and help out. I have by far the best team in City Hall. So they're fantastic. We have about 50 years worth of experience and knowledge. So they're all professionals because I think it's 10,000 hours, right? So they're all professionals. And so if you come into our office any day, you'll see that it's dealing with the public and it's fully functional and it's popping pretty much on every day. So it's a lot going on in the office, and quite frankly, these guys, ladies, can handle pretty much. We have title searchers, we have real estate people, we have all kind of lawyers and stuff come in the office, and they really do a great job of making others look good because they know they have the experience and know what's going on. So, not to blow smoke, but they are good. So, let's go through our budget here. I'll start with the salaries. You'll see some increases there. Some are contractual. I do have a 681 in my office, and I think our finance director explained away the increase for the city council. I say that because I'm the city council person now. I do, if so chose, I can run again. So it would be for that position, not John Lewis. Got that? And as he said, it would be over a few years period because I don't know, it might have been 10 years since there's been any kind of change in that salary because it's elected. And those are usually the ones everybody focuses on. So, but he did, our finance director did a great job explaining why. So I'm grateful to the mayor, but, whatever you guys choose, John's going to be all right. We did factor out, we did factor out our, for the salaries, we did factor out our part-time position because they wanted to, I guess the finance department wanted to separate the full-time, part-time sort of thing. So you do see a decrease in the regular wages and an increase in the part-time. So that would explain that. Going down, we did have an election this past year, which we had a huge change. You had 14 days for the general election, and you had 7 days of early voting, which you have to pay people to do those things. So you will see some increases, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we probably did go over a little bit in several areas, but this was a national thing. So I don't know what the days are going to be for our possible primary or general election this year, but we do have those coming up, and I don't know if they'll be 7, 14, 21. I don't know what, not sure what we'll be doing. So there are some changes and increases there. Advertising is a big thing because you have to make notice for what's going on, and I don't know if the tariffs attack this, but advertising goes up too, so it's a huge cost because we have to, by law, put these things in the put notice so people know what's going on legally. Let me see. Let me see what else. Training and education. We do. This is going to be a year. To go to clerks, basically clerk school, you do have, it takes about almost 3 years to do it because you get 5 pillars and you have to do a June and a December test or class. And you have to do 5 of them. So it ends up being basically 2.5 years. And if you got it, we get in last year, because of how it fell, it didn't get started until now. So that plus we have our any training that our team would do would have to come out of that. Let me see, where else were we? Fees and charges. It looks like we do have some. This would be a little bit. Let me see. Drop my phone in the garbage. Okay. Let me find my fees. Printer service. Oh, we have. I don't know if you all have seen the printers that we have in the vault. There's one upstairs. Here on the 3rd floor in the Public Works, but we have one in our vault that is very beneficial. It needs a little work right now, but it can take a map and give you a full scale copy of a map. Now, if you notice, if you're on the train, which I take much going Metro North, going to New York, the poles are wider because they're extending they're adding extra services or something. You may have seen them at our train station. They were laying flat on the ground. Poles that are here, now they're going a little bit wider. So they need to come in and get copies of the land records to base off of their, for their operation. So it's beneficial. They've been grateful when it works. So we do have a good working one here in Public Works, but we'd like to get ours up and functional because it really helps us. I can download a copy, email it to somebody pretty easily, and they're pretty grateful for that. Most people that come in. Let me see what else. I think that's pretty much our budget. But you know, I'd love to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. So for other professional services, what are the services exactly?
Okay, other professional services.
52480.
Yeah, we have. Okay, so in because records change on a daily basis, you buy a house, it becomes a new record that's put on, and you have older records that are there. So we have books that we have to buy. We have to create new books. These guys are printing new books 1 a week, maybe every 2 weeks. All right. So and we have a cost from Adkins. We have to purchase binders. We have to have a physical copy in our vault for any one that needs to look at it or wants to look at it. Now, that is included also with binders that we already have that we had to have recreated because they've been molded, they're smoky, they're kind of So we've gotten through about half of that now, maybe or so. But the new stuff, it comes on every day, so you just can't predict. If we have a surge of new homes being built, we have a surge of purchases or transactions that take place. Everything has to be available to the public. So that's it's an ongoing cost. And now we got grantor grantee books, which we have to recreate, which we're about a few years behind right now. So in just creating those. So a lot of these costs are necessary. I don't know if you will say they're contractual, but they're definitely necessary because we have to have this stuff by state law. So
Okay. Is that part of the archive services?
archive services is another line. So archiving would be the part I said earlier about recreating the stuff that's been there.
Correct.
That awful people, they're abusive to the book sometimes.
Right.
So.
Right. Do we have both electric or electric?
Yes, we do have IQS, which does most of our land records, well, all our land records right now. So what they do is you have to have a physical copy and a copy. So if you wanted to go online and go to searchiqs.com, put West Haven in the browser, and you can pull up any property that you want. You can and you can purchase a property. Now, again, you see the cost here, but we also people pay for the service, so we get a check monthly or so. You know, right? They purchase copies. We get a piece of it. They get a piece of it. You know, for doing the printing. So our office. If you looked at our office, we spend about looks like about almost $500,000, but we're taking in about $4 million a year in transactions. So again, it's every day, and sometimes it's you never know what to expect every day. We talked about making a sitcom of Clerks because it's just so interesting. You get all kind of stories. So. It's a lot going on, and but it's life, you know. It's what we're doing on a daily basis. So
if everything is backed up, not everything, but if the newer stuff is backed up on a computer system, do you have to have a hard copy as well with those records?
By law, yes, I have to have a hard copy.
Okay.
Right, because remember, not everybody's online, and if you don't have it, you may get a nasty gram from somebody.
Yeah.
You know, state statute. So. And, you know, they'll come every once in a while and just walk around and see what's going on and if you have everything you're supposed to have. So.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have
welcome.
any questions? Councilman Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Mr. Lewis.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Been down
Thank you for coming the other day.
Been down the vault. That you guys doing great over there. I'm gonna have a problem saying this word, digitalization. Are we still working on that?
We are. Everything is pretty much online the day it comes in.
So are we caught? I know we were doing from certain older year. Are we continuing?
Oh, you talking about the archiving? Yeah, we
Is
still
that-
have. I'm still going backwards. So I try to do a newer stuff because that's I think what people are looking for. But we get a lot of people because we have all of Orange's records here, and from what I've been told years ago, people would sit back with cigars in the back room and just funk the place up. But so there's burn marks, there's all kind of stuff there, but we have to. I mean, it's moldy, some of it. You know what I mean? So it's got to be.
So that falls under the archiving service.
That would be archiving service. Yeah, that's correct. Yes.
And the other thing is, have you gotten a price on the cost of that printer to fix it?
It's I'm waiting for procurement to talk to me. She's really good at negotiating. So, Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I think so. I would agree, and it's necessary. You know what I mean? It's it would help us out quite a bit, getting it taken care of.
The other thing is, I know that the dog license is low, right? Nobody.
Well, okay, so it's the cost of the tags, right? It's not revenue, right?
Okay.
Right. That's the
Drawing
expense.
pretty good revenue with that.
Oh yeah. People, we got a good response. This past year, we did not send out the letter, but most people came in. But we'll send one out this year so we can let everybody know that license your dog. A lot of people come in late because they're going on vacation or whatever, and they gotta house the dog. Or you need all the shots and everything and proof that they're licensed.
Gotcha. Thank you, and like you said, you do have a great staff. I've been
Thank
there
you.
numerous times and have not everybody in your offices helped me out pretty quick. So
Fantastic.
I commend you on that. Thank you.
Good. Glad to help.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Councilwoman Heffernan?
Hi, how are you? Outstanding. Yes. Fantastically
wasn't on
outstanding.
I had a question. You requested $20,000 for the expenses for the election day, and it was recommended for 25.
Yes.
Do you have a feeling about that?
So after we re-looked at it, because we didn't have all the numbers at originally, but it's looking like going forward. I mean, you just don't know about elections, and I think we were over the amount because what happens is between I had to go back to Atkins, I think 3 times, and I drove there actually twice to get more ballots. We ran out. This was I think it was over 70. Yeah, over a couple of days because the weekends they were open on the weekends too, the early voting. So we order all the ballots.
Right.
For the whole city, we order all the ballots. So when they're running low, it's my responsibility to get the ballots. So I had to make sure we had enough. So, 7 districts. You just don't know which district's coming in, and you got to be ready because that ends up hitting the paper.
It doesn't seem this is an election year for us.
Yes.
City council.
Yes.
But it's not a national election. Do you feel that you do require the 25, or do you think the 20 would be enough?
Okay, so we have 56,000 people in West Haven, and 56,000 can vote in the.
I know.
In the 4-year election, or they can vote in the 2-year election. I just don't know.
I don't know what the statistics are for the people, the showing up of the off presidential year.
Right, and I think, given the fact that you have more days, maybe make election day a national holiday. I don't know, but maybe because we have the 14 days we have a primary and a general election. We just don't know.
Right, we don't even know
if we're going to have a primary or a general election. But again, those same 56,000 people, no matter what, can show up and vote.
Right.
Or 25,000 because I
Not
think
everyone's
those
adult
are the registered voters, I believe. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So the numbers could be the same. I mean, it's still the city of West Haven. You know what I mean? So that number's not gonna change.
Right. So your actual expenses were 14.
14 for LA.
Or almost, let's say 15.
Let me see. 25. I don't know if that number is. Yeah. No, I got it. 14.7.
I mean, that might not include the actual ballot price, like the actual ballots, or. I mean.
Let me see. Well, we've been running an average of 17.7. So 18. I'd have to relook at that number, but I'd say, maybe 18 is probably,
Okay.
a real number. But again, that was just then. Who knows what's going to happen
Right.
here going forward?
Okay. Thank you for that.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Garthwaite?
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. So other contractual services, all the way at the bottom above dog licenses.
Okay.
It's like all over the place the past couple of years. What is that? Why is it all over the place?
Why is it all over the place?
Yeah, it just seems to
Okay, so a big thing we have in other contractual obligations is IQS. All right, so what's going to happen going forward, which we haven't even received yet? We have new computers coming. We have new printers. We have new scanners. Label makers, that sort of thing. So what happens when you buy your property? You get a deed. Okay, and your deed has a number on it. Okay, and it also, all these things have costs: print, deed, label maker. And again, please just keep this in your mind. The office brings in $4 million. This is $76,000. Okay, so let's keep that in perspective. So all these things are used, and you have to have them to run your daily operation. It's the cost of doing business. So the cost is going up, which hasn't. You guys just approved. Thank you. Anything that's over a 3-year deal contract for IQS, you all just approved this past year the increase, the new contract that's going before. So whereas a copy was maybe 60 cents, now it's 90 cents going forward. Also per page. Okay, so that would be our cost. Sorry, this is Lori. Lori, come on up. Yeah, this is Lori Moran. I'll just have her come in.
So the document goes on file, and it used to be 60 cents. Okay. You're welcome. Hi, everybody. So the document goes on file, and it used to be 60 cents a page. Now it's 90 or 95 cents a page. And IQS provides us with a service that double checks us. So we all put it in, the whole office as a group puts whatever we get on in, the land records, trade names, even dog licenses, death certificates, birth, marriage, and the land records gets double checked by us. Then we ship it to them, they double check it. They send us a report, we address the report and make it as perfect as it can be for everything to connect in the land records. And they provide online service so anybody can get a deed from anywhere if you subscribe. So it's not just, not just the land records, it's everything.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Just one more question for John.
Yes.
And
just one more thing. These land records, they have to be exact. I had someone who had their name, they had a quitclaim deed, and their name was their married name and their maiden name. Okay, but they wanted to be AKA, and they had and. So it was like it was two people. So you just want to, these little nuances. Chris is in the law business. Little nuances could change everything. You can give your property away to somebody, so they want to make sure it's correct.
I agree with that. So just put it on record, the two raises that are here for non-elected, I can't find them. I look at the wrong book? There it is. 3.0% and 2.0%. Those are contractual, correct?
Okay, so the records clerk is contractual. That's already taken place.
Okay.
That was just approved a few months ago, and the part time is just because we try to give 2% just the cost of living, because quite frankly, I think it's necessary.
I just want to put it on record because this is one of the biggest complaints from our residents, and I want to make sure that we explain it to them.
Yeah, and you know what? If they, if you took it on average, I think if you weighed it against what we're doing on a daily basis, and the time that's put in, and over the years, if you want quality, which I think the mayor has, she's put some, raises in here. But if you want quality work, can't play LeBron, pennies. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Councilman Vargo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How are you, John?
I'm well. How are you, sir?
Good, thank you. I'm looking at your other professional services, 52480.
Yes.
3-year average is trending higher than what your budgets have been. I'm concerned that of why that is and how you're capturing that excess. You're asking for 20,000. Mayor's proposed 20,000, but your average is almost 34,000. Last year, your actual was 55,000. I just wonder if you could speak to the driving force of why it's been over what you've asked for, and is your $20,000 a real number that, and those numbers were outliers, or do you have a plan to drive down that number?
And that's other professional services?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So previously, I believe there was transfers done prior to our arrival into that office to put it up to that higher amount. I think if things are booked correctly, the 20,000 is sufficient.
So the prior years weren't. I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
I believe there was a transfer from one account to another.
Oh, okay.
Within our budget. Oh, please.
Sorry. So to answer your question, I think Mr. Lewis spoke on Atkin printing and the archiving, and I think in those last few years that you see the average going up, there was a lot of catch up in those years.
Okay.
On archiving, just looking at the history of it, there were years where that account was 11,000, then it jumped up, I think, as we were catching up on some of those costs. So I think Mr. Lewis mentioned that, they're in a pretty good spot with that. So, the 20,000 should be sufficient.
Okay.
enough.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gourmet.
The archiving services. Your office has been pretty spot on with that 52,000. Is that a contractual number, or is that a cost that you just monitor very closely and make sure that you don't go over it?
It's a cost we monitored. Okay, so what I've been able to do, we were getting a book done at $400 a page. I mean, $400 a book.
$400 a book.
And I work with Atkins, and through I've been told, we got it down to about $260 now a book. So I'm still working on it because I don't know what the sweet spot is, but I'm working on it, and I want to get it to a sweet spot because we're dealing with the public's money, and I can get more books done because we gotta get them done because they're nasty. So we're trying to get the cost down per book, and I've been able to get more. We did like 100 the first year, and now we've done over 200. So hopefully we can do better because I still have a lot of books to go.
Do you have an idea of what you have left? Just a ballpark number?
Okay, so I'm probably 300 300 plus grantor grantees, so probably 500
500.
books at least
Wow.
to go. And again, that's not even counting the new stuff coming on.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying? So you got to have it all available.
Right.
You know.
Speaking about the IQS, I am familiar with the service. I use it a lot.
Yeah, I see
in
your name sometimes.
Yeah. So the city gets money from that, right? So I mean,
Yes.
if an attorney or a title searcher or somebody went into your office, went onto the computer, or you helped them,
Mhm.
they would be paying the city directly, whatever it is per page
Yes.
for that copy. Now they don't have to do that; they're doing it online, but they're being charged for that, and the city is receiving a piece of that, right?
Correct.
It's not 100%, but they're receiving a pretty decent piece of that.
That is correct. We do receive it. We get a check every month, I believe it is, and yeah, about $1,500 a month we're getting from.
Do we know what the total for the year is? And it's probably somewhere in here, but I just don't know where.
I can get that number to
Well,
you.
if it's like $1,500 a month, I can do that math.
Yeah, yeah, about that. Yeah.
And lastly, since we're chatting about salaries, your salary increase for 3,600. This is your job, right?
I'm full time here. That is correct.
How many
I am
hours?
elected, but I am full time. I'm here.
Now, how many hours do you work a week?
I don't know. Depends. I got evening meetings too sometimes. So I don't know what 40, 45 hours a week, something like that. Probably.
You're working right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Any other questions for Mr. Lewis? Councilman Johnstone?
Thank you, Chairwoman. John,
Yes, sir.
do you foresee in the future? I'm just hearing this thing about books and how we're behind. Is your staff big enough?
I got a really good staff. And
I know you do.
Thank you.
Believe me, I hear good things.
Thank you.
But is it big enough?
Yeah. You know what? We have a great staff. Also, we do have some say summer help that comes during the summer through the school. So we do have, but we're pretty set on staff.
That was my only question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome. Any other questions for Mr. Lewis? Seeing there are none, thank you, Mr. Lewis, for your presentation.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Up next, we have Corporate Counsel, Attorney Paul Dorsey.
Good evening, members of the council.
Welcome.
I too stand before you tonight, very proud of my department and what it's accomplished with this new administration and what we came in with, what we had to deal with, and the lack of staff that we had in the past. If you notice that we have significantly reduced outside counsel fees. I still stand firm that we do need outside counsel fees. There are certain things that actually law requires, and I would not go seek to go below that minimum that I'm asking for of $200,000. But when you look at previous years, $350,000, $400,000 in outside counsel fees. And we've cut that drastically. We have a great staff. I have 3 lawyers working with me that put their heart and soul into this job. They're talented, they're diverse, and we work together very, very well. So I think our staffing is fantastic. Sue is invaluable to the office. She's the oracle. She has all the knowledge and the continuity from year to year. And Carla, who is your administrative assistant, also gives time to the Corporation Counsel's office as well. She had that job years ago where she worked full-time for the Corporation Counsel's office, and now she's back. I have her part-time, a few hours here and there, but invaluable. So I can go over some of the highlights. Really, nothing's changing too much from the prior year. I had asked for some extra hours in my requests. We seldom use them in our office, but I thought that would be prudent to ask for, particularly around budget time. Things get busy, and sometimes it's appropriate. Now, we're a law office, so we're busy all the time. So deadlines come up all the time with this city council as well as our office, and there's no shrug your shoulders. It's time to go home. The work's got to get done. Library expenses. So I was before you last year so proud to say that we could cut our library expenses because we're going digital. We no longer get the Connecticut reporters and U.S. reporters, which are very, very, very expensive. And I spoke too soon because we had yearly contracts, not fiscal contracts. Those contracts are up. So I promise you this year we'll cut our library expenses, as I was explaining last year. We still need the Connecticut statutes. We still need annotated statutes. They're very, very helpful. And a few books that are harder to find online, publications that are specialized, particularly with municipal law and land use. So library expenses, yes, will be cut tremendously. Now, we have a line item that was added to my budget for the Board of Ethics. It's $10,000. I believe that line item should remain, but there's been some talk about a line item for our Fair Rent Commission. We brought the Fair Rent Commission back during this administration. It's been on the books for years and years, never existed. We have hearings, lots of them. Our office also, for example, Carla is very good at that, and Sue helping out with the clerical and secretarial work for the Fair Rent Commission. You have to understand the Fair Rent Commission is quasi judicial. I mean, they're hearing cases, they're determining facts, and they're applying the law and making decisions. So there's a lot of paperwork that goes into that, and they need a budget. So maybe I would recommend that the Ethics Commission budget of $10,000 gets reduced to $5,000 and $5,000 to the Fair Rent Commission if you can add that line item. Now, the Fair Rent Commission has to have its own line item. I just can't put it in and say, okay, if they need an investigation, I can take it out of other legal services or outside counsel or professional services. I can't because I can't control it. It has to be their money to spend simply because of the nature of their board and the work that they do. I suggest a very large cut in foreclosure. So years ago, that never existed, and we used the outside counsel budget for it. But when the city forecloses on a property and we use outside counsel, the court awards the attorney's fees back, as well as the marshal services, as well as the committee costs. So we get our costs back, and appraisal services, for example. So years ago, I asked for that line item, and it was actually a revolving account, simply to save money coming out of our professional services and outside counsel. We don't need that much of a war chest for foreclosures anymore, simply because we sell our tax liens on bulk, and we let the other people collect it. We don't. We have some properties in certain circumstances arise in the city where we want to do the foreclosures in-house. We will need money for that, for marshal service, for appraisals, that kind of thing. We'll get that money back if we're successful, or we'll get the property, one or the other. But we certainly don't need that war chest anymore for foreclosure. So I'm asking that be dropped down to $20,000. And with that, conventions and dues, it doesn't show that we spent any yet, but we have. Recently went to an all-day symposium on labor law, and I'm asking my deputies and my assistant we're required as attorneys to have, I don't know, I think 12 or 15 hours of continuing legal education, and I'm requesting that my staff use a significant portion of that for municipal topics. So that should remain. Let's see. Other professional services. So we anticipate spending that money. Lots of development, lots of things are going on now, and we're going to need everything from title searches to environmental studies, engineering studies to continue the pace at which we're progressing right now with projects in the city. So I urge that to stay intact as well. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
Thank you, Attorney Dorsey. Any questions for Attorney Dorsey? Councilman Vargo?
Thank you. How are you, Paul?
Doing well, and you?
Good, thank you. I understand that the city pays for environmental engineering costs, appraisal, stuff like that. Why do we pay for title searches?
Why do we pay for title searches?
They're title searches of West Haven properties, right?
Sometimes, yeah. Well, yeah. We've paid for title searches before, yeah. We used to actually, back in the day, we had a line item back in the '90s. We had a title searcher on salary.
So you don't have somebody in your office doing. You're paying for an outside title searcher.
Generally, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Although Mike Agello's done them. My deputy, Mike Agello, has done title work for the city. Yeah.
Okay. What is your projected outside legal services for fiscal year 25?
For this year,
yeah,
we're gonna come very, very close, if not over. The reason being is we have some matters in litigation right now. I can't tell you the details, but we're coming up on some major discovery work and dispositive motions, which are going to require briefing as well. All right. So I'm anticipating that. That being said, though, we have cut significantly back from over the years. Used to be if the city needed a contract, that went out to outside counsel. So we're some of that is necessary. I mean, in certain situations where maybe a transaction is particular, maybe like a construction contract that's beyond like the paving of the sidewalks. We might seek outside counsel for advice and compliance. But generally, no, we're doing that work in-house. But yes, I think that $200,000 at a minimum is necessary, absolutely necessary. And we're gonna get close on a couple of matters. Also, employment matters. I think if we have, I don't want to say an area of weakness, but maybe that would be the area. Would be the employment stuff, the grievances and the union stuff. We also have 3 contracts up for renewal, and it is highly advisable to have outside counsel participate as management counsel in those negotiations. There's conflicts. There's morale. Okay. I represent firefighters, for example. I represent police officers, for example, in civil matters and claims against those departments. So, yeah, outside counsel is essential. So we have to factor those three, renewals that are coming up.
Does any of this budget cover? Do you do any work for the Board of Ed, or do they have their own legal budget?
Both. I have done work for the Board of Ed, and they've also covered some costs of their own. Yes.
Okay. And lastly, on the Board of Ethics, I assume that they haven't used any money this year.
The Board of Ed?
Ethics.
Oh, ethics. No, ethics has not, because I think they had one or two complaints that they dealt with without investigation.
Okay. So we can't simply, you and I had this conversation about adding fair rent into the mix.
Yeah.
We can't simply make it Board of Ethics / fair rent, right? We have to do a split of some sort.
Yeah, I would. My legal recommendation would be a split, simply because the Board of Ethics has to have control of that. I can't decide for them whether or not we're going to hire an attorney or an investigator. They have to make that decision. That's hands off. Okay, so they have to have that line item. But I don't think that I think we can take 5,000 and send it to, worst comes to worst, we can do a transfer from outside legal services or something like that. If they require a larger amount of money to be spent, but I don't anticipate it. But
okay,
when nothing's certain, anything's possible.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilwoman Callahan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening.
Good evening.
I just have a quick question about when you were talking about the foreclosure rate has gone down.
Yes.
Compared to maybe a couple of years ago to now, can you give us like an average about how many houses with 55,000 people in, the town, and a lot of them are rentals, but can you give us an average of like approximately a year go into a foreclosure? And, I know that you said financially that's a burden, obviously, that we have to take care of.
Yeah.
But what would you say is like I know it's a hard question to answer, but I'm just curious.
I can't give you an answer with respect to how many tax liens we sell a year,
Okay.
or how many properties are in back taxes or owe back taxes. But I can tell you that the list of tax liened properties that the liens haven't been sold is very small. We're talking less than 50, probably more in the lines of like 20, 25 properties.
Oh, that's awesome.
We
Okay.
sell the liens, the good, the bad, they take them, and it's a wonderful win-win situation for the city. By the way, that program.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Tucker.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Question I have is similar to Dawn's question, but it's about which liens the city holds on to, because you talked about the fact that the city sells the liens to a company,
Yes.
but then you hold on to some of them. What is the
Criteria for that?
Yeah.
I don't know, because it was done in prior administration. I would say sell them. There could be. I don't think we would sell like an environmental problem, a property that has an environmental problem and is liened. There might be a provision in the contract, for example, with the buyer, the purchaser of these liens. Any number of similar reason to that, maybe. But I really don't know why we have this list of properties with liens that haven't been sold. But it's very small. It's very small.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Melton.
Hi, Paul.
Aye.
A couple of questions. Continuing with the foreclosure question.
Yes.
Did you say that one of the reasons we're keeping this in-house is that we will get our costs back in a successful foreclosure? Is that right?
We would, but we wouldn't. That's not the reason we would keep it in house. So,
But normally, I bet like when we hire, if you hire an outside attorney to do a foreclosure action, and the action is successful, those costs will come back, and that will then, so the person who's hired, so if you've hired an outside counsel, it's going to net out more or
Right.
less.
Legal fees as well.
Right, and so this $20,000, would that not, does this represent an action that you weren't successful in pursuing, or is it something that would net out?
No, this is projected money to spend. We have to spend the money before we get it back.
Right, but I mean, at the end of the day, if you were doing sort of an expense and revenue
Yep.
analysis of your department, it would net out more.
It would net out.
Yeah.
And so years ago, as I was explaining, before we started selling the tax liens,
Right.
we would use outside counsel,
Right.
okay, and we would pay their fees. And that account, when I originally set it up, back in 97, 98, with the then finance director, we made it a revolving account. In other words, I could put money back into it, which is rare. It's not that way anymore. But we seldom use it. That's the thing, because we're not really doing that many foreclosures. I think we're probably anticipating doing 4 or 5. Now, here's the rub. Sometimes we want to keep them in-house because we want to keep an eye on them. We want to know what's happening. There's pluses and minuses sometimes for taking properties. We don't want to take dirty properties, of course, unless we have a way to clean them or planned. But an interesting rub is that the courts are less likely to give in-house counsel attorneys fees when there's foreclosures. That's why we always used to send them out, because it was extra work and we wouldn't get the money back. And it would, oh, you're a salaried lawyer for the city, we're not going to give you attorney's fees. And that's the way it was. I'm not sure if it's changed or not. We're going to certainly try to get our attorney's fees if we do them in house. Absolutely. Sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Yep.
So moving on to outside counsel, I'm curious about how we manage that in house. I used to manage outside counsel in my old job. So, how do you go about? Do we have law firms on retainer with fixed rates, or do you?
Fixed rates.
You have fixed rates.
Yeah.
And so just explain a little bit how that works and how we, because there are many different expertises that you might need.
Right.
So
Bonding counsel, for
bonding
example.
counsel
Right.
and,
Okay.
And,
So bonding counsel is more expensive than a contract, or which is more expensive than some of the labor law stuff. But sometimes the labor law can get very expensive, as can environmental. We hire environmental lawyers as well. We do not pay anymore. We did in the past administration, paid firms retainers, or basically put them on a salary, paid them quarterly or something like that. And we don't do that anymore. And I negotiate with each firm and the retainer agreement. And I work very, very hard to get them to sharpen their pencil. And I've not offered work to some firms because I thought they were too high. And some firms are really happy to take the city work and will work with us. And then I ask for articulated bills, if they're particularly they're hourly. So I want to I go through them, and none of this legal research 8.5 hours, that kind of that's a thing of the past. But unless, of course, the case warrants it. I mean, there's times when there's going to be a high legal bill. Simple as that. We're involved in a litigation right now, which I'm not going to talk about at this podium, but I'm anticipating a lot of motions that are going to come up, and depositions which haven't even started yet.
well, so this 200,000 is not. I mean, it's not a huge number if for the types of things you're talking about, but if we're anticipating, and I don't know if we are, doing another bonding during the next year, this number doesn't reflect that number, does it?
Well, bonding comes, yeah. I don't think bonding comes out of my budget. It comes out of finance, which is
Okay.
great.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
All right. So it'd be two different.
yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Anything else?
Councilman Garthwaite?
Thank you so much for all your explanations. You answered all my questions,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
everything was very thorough. But 3 little tiny questions.
Mhm.
The 2.5% raises are contractual, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good.
That's
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions for Attorney Dorsey? Thank you,
All
Attorney
right. Thank you
Dorsey.
very
Really
much.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
So that concludes today's presentations. We will recess at, what time is it? I can't even see the clock. 7:52. Oh, 7:52, and reconvene tomorrow, April 9th at 6 p.m.